My name is Carla Thornton. I'm a first-year student with the Military Social Work program here at USC.
Tell me about if you have any personal experiences with military children dependents.
Well, I'm actually, I'm in the Air Force Reserves. I've been in it for about 13 years, so I have that firsthand experience dealing with, I actually never had a family for the majority of the time. I have a 2-year-old now. So I have a lot of experience dealing with my peers, having family members, having that issue where they're on deployments, we're on deployments together, and dealing with the separation of still trying to manage their family life back at home while being overseas. Now that I'm a student, I'm getting a totally different perspective because now I'm working with the children at my internship, so it's very interesting to see the other side of it. I've always gotten the parent side of it, but now to see how it truly affects the child it's very interesting.
So as a mother of a military dependent, would you choose to, so there's base schools and then there's public or private, what's your daughter's son's?
Coral.
Coral?
Yes.
Where would you choose to deploy Coral as she gets older into school? Would you steer clear of public schools and go for more base schools, or no base schools, private, or what would you do?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. In my career, I've probably been stationed at 6 bases. 3 of them were overseas. So in the military, the DOD schools or the DODA, schools overseas are highly capable. The children that are enrolled in these schools, they're not exposed to the regular stereotypical civilian issues. So what you see with these children that are enrolled in these schools overseas is they excel academically. They're involved in sports and extracurricular activities. They have their support groups with the other students because they're all being able to relate to each other. So to answer your question, if I was overseas, I would love the opportunity to have her involved in a military school. Stateside? Public? Absolutely not. The teacher ratio is incredible. At the elementary school I'm at, it's 30 students to 1 teacher. Can you imagine being in the first grade with 30 students and 1 teacher, not even an aide? The military schools on like, for example, Camp Pendleton, from talking to some of the other interns here, I don't know the exact number, but I do know it is still, in my opinion, a large student to teacher ratio. So I'm already looking into private schools, and she's only 2. So, private schools.
All right, and how has the organization that you're affiliated with addressed needs for military dependent students?
Well, I'm actually in a unique position. I'm doing my intern at 2 schools. Out in Temecula County, I'm at Bella Vista Middle School and Susan Laverne Elementary School. And at the elementary school, and Temecula has a very large military population. About 17% of the students enrolled in both schools have a parent in the military. What happens is that the Marines that are in the Navy station out here in San Diego, they live in Temecula, so they commute there. And also 30 miles away from Temecula is the largest Air Reserve base in the nation, which is a March Air Reserve Base. So there's a lot of Air Force members or students there also. At the elementary school, they actually have a military room, a classroom dedicated strictly to the military. And the kids come and they post photos and pictures of members of their family in the military. They can come there during their lunch break and use it as a classroom to socialize with each other. There's a teacher there, or now that I'm there, I'm beginning to take that role where we utilize it as a kind of an informal support group. At the middle school, Like I said, they also have the elementary school, all the students there end up going to that middle school, Bella Vista Middle School. Since I've been there as an intern, they actually used to have a military support group that met during lunch. That was about 2 years ago. So now that I've come back, I started that. It's called the Military Hot Wash. And I get actually pretty good participation. I get about 18 students per lunch break, and we come in and we just do activities and talk about the issues that are unique to the military students. So both schools actually do have programs to support the military child.
Well, that's really good.
Oh yeah, it's really great.
What do you consider to be the top priorities in working with military demanding students?
I mean, the military child is so unique. They're so incredibly unique. From my experience of being there, I would say the transitional issues that they face. When these transitional issues, and I want to say the older they, and actually I see them both in elementary and middle school. They're moving multiple times. They're having to be the new kid constantly. They have parents that are deployed, and their behavioral issues are not being addressed as a military child. So you have these faculty members that aren't really sensitive to the issues that a military child has. So they're treating them the same way they treat a normal child. In my opinion, they're not really taking into consideration that this child is acting this way because they have a parent that's deployed for 6 to 8 months, or that this is the second time they've moved, right? Or that the only reason they're out here is because they're living with their aunt, because both of their parents are deployed. So the transitional issues that occur from repeatedly moving, I think to me is the biggest issue, the behavior problems that occur from that.
Yeah, I mean, even to the idea that like well, in my old school I was allowed to do that. It's like, well, you're not allowed to do that here. We don't do that here anymore, or we teach you this way. So yeah, they're definitely the transition. And how do you think that there is a way to create a constant in the schools? Because, like you said, the military child has so many changes.
Mm-hmm.
What is a good way to try and keep a constant in the schools?
So for them, to create consistency for them, at the elementary school, they have the same teacher all the time, right? So that's kind of the consistency there for them. At the middle school level, though, I think it would be great if a military child, and of course I'm biased, right? The military child, because actually what happens is that the parent fills a form out and they identify that their child is from a military family. If it would be okay to say, okay, I know that this person is a military child, and they get a special welcome packet, that they know about all the programs that are being offered by that school, that the teacher is cognizant, that they go through some type of training. It doesn't even have to be face-to-face, maybe even computer-based training. And perhaps, like I said, I'm biased. Every student should receive, attention, but that consistency they do need in the school climate, because they're really not getting it at home sometimes. So by having a faculty or staff member and having support groups, perhaps that could be the way that they can receive consistency in the school level.
How do you think that public education has responded to the needs of military dependent students?
Well, I'm just now moving back to California, and since I'm at schools that are away from a military community, I'm sure someone that was down here, a school that was neighboring to Camp Pendleton, would have a totally different answer to me. Temecula is 30 minutes away. So they have not addressed, even though the schools, and that's a school individually, the principals, they're dedicating a room at the elementary school. The principal is saying, yes, we can have a support group during lunch. But at the superintendent level, at the even policy level for the state of California, I do not believe that the issues have really been addressed with the behavioral, even when they transfer from state to state. And I mean, I've seen that happen even when I was a military active duty member, where a kid who lived in Texas is now moving to Florida, and they have two separate requirements, and now they're having to be held back in a grade or do additional coursework to be at the level of their peers. So those things should be kept into consideration when evaluating a military child. And I think a great way that they can do that is that if they had someone at the county level who could review the transcripts for this child when they join the district and say, okay, we know they're from a different state, maybe we can give them this test, and if they pass this test, they don't have to repeat a grade or repeat the class. So giving them that individualized service, I think. And I believe that there are programs, there's money out there to employ someone to take on that job. And I think that's a very another important issue that the military child is having.
Yeah. Last question.
Okay.
What do you or your fellow students or anybody here, what do you hope to get out of this workshop?
This workshop is actually really interesting. I hope to have a better understanding of the child development. You know, I know how adults grieve, and that's just from the training I've experienced from being a military member. In the Air Force, we're very cognizant of addressing issues of grief and transitions. But what this conference is doing today is teaching us how the child grieves. You know, how each child is different, and based upon their age group, how they might react to grief differently, they process it differently. So that's what I hope to walk away from, is a better understanding on child development, what is typical behavior for a child based upon their age, and what they've experienced, and what I can do, what resources I can take away from here and present to my parents at the schools and the principal and the vice principal, and say, hey, these resources are out there to help children when they're experiencing these problems. So that's what I hope to take away from it.